Hello and welcome. This is Claudia Myatt talking this time about sketchbooks and how important they are for any kind of creative endeavour. I'm always teaching people and urging them to keep a sketchbook, but then I realise I actually have about 6 different sorts for 6 different reasons, and I thought it might be interesting to go through all the different types of sketchbooks I use, and hopefully you'll find something in there that will inspire you to get going and find your own way of getting your ideas down on paper. A sketchbook's like a garden where you grow ideas, and you don't expect them all to grow, but you've got to keep on planting them. My sketchbooks are in all sorts of sizes. I always use hardback ones so they don't fall apart, and also I'm not tempted to tear the pages out. So I'm going to start with the smallest one, that's my filling in time when I'm bored sketchbook. It fits in a bag or a pocket, and it's where if I want to keep my hands busy and I haven't got any other gear with me and I've only got 5 minutes, I will do some scribbles. It's great for if you're stuck in a meeting or waiting for somebody or waiting for a train, or even at a gig. I will try and draw the musicians just to give my hands something to do while my ears and mind are occupied. Any odd things. So I've got plenty of those. I don't care what's in them or what they look like. It's just keeping you busy. So that's my littlest one. Also at home I've got this rather lovely one which my Dutch friend Elsa covered for me in beautiful fabric. It's my Doodle book. It's usually used first thing in the morning if you wake up with an idea and you don't quite know what to do with it, or you're trying to work out some characters for a book, or you're trying to do something for a project and you're not quite sure where it's going. And so this is my Doodle book. Sometimes the doodles turn out, sometimes they don't. I don't mind if things get evolved and not used. Those ones I was particularly pleased with, so I decided to do something with those, and they evolved into a whole series of tile designs which look like that. So ideas have to start somewhere, they don't just happen by themselves. And also that kind of thing was partly what I was doing in my first tutorial about doodling, and that sort of also evolved into that, and that's now also evolving into some fabric designs. So you never know what things are going to grow into and which things are going to grow. You've just got to keep on drawing and drawing and drawing and thinking with a pencil, and it's hard to look at an empty page. You've got to keep those pages filled. So that's my doodling book, which lives at home. Now we're starting to go out of the house. If I'm travelling very light or I'm on a small boat where there's not much space, I take something this size. This was one I took on a sailing trip to France a few years ago. I just had the book and a pencil case with a few watercolour crayons in and some pens and pencils. It was a very wet trip, I seem to remember, but this was my little travel diary, and it was big enough to have everything in it that I needed, even my breakfast. It was too wet to draw much outside by the looks of it, but that's quite a nice size to work with. And then going up, if I'm travelling to somewhere which has got amazing scenery, I tend to use these long format books where you can put a drawing across the whole page if you want to. They're quite nice to work with. This was a trip to the Hebrides a few years ago. When you get stuck indoors, you can draw your beach finds. So again, I was trying to get the colours of a new place. It's always a joy trying to sketch a new place and try to understand it and understand the light. And these books bring back so many memories, much more so than photos would. They take you straight back there. Even if the drawings are wobbly, they still do it. It's still really, really intense in terms of keeping your memories alive. If I'm travelling in a bit more comfort, the books can go up a bit in size. When I work on a cruise ship, I tend to keep a diary of all the places that we visit. And my students find this interesting because usually they're used to working from photos. So it takes a bit of confidence to go outside and sketch. And they'd ask me, "Are you going to make these into paintings?" And I'd say, "Well, no." And somebody said, "Well, why are you doing it then?" And that made me think about why we sketch. and there are so many reasons. Creating a painting from your sketchbook may be one of them, but there are so many other reasons. Mainly just to engage with your life and observe new places and get something down, that connection, and get into practice as well. I think anything you sketch will make you a better artist, even if you don't use those particular sketches, because you're having to look so intensely. And you'll never forget a place if you've at least tried to sketch it. There's something quite thrilling about seeing something you've never seen before, like the Panama Canal. So that was a exotic travel book. But there's no reason not to keep books close to home. Just because you don't go very far doesn't mean that there's not a whole world around you. I live on a boat, so I don't have a garden, but I do have a boatyard to draw in. So these are my garden sketches. So you can take a theme at home, you can draw your garden day by day, season by season. You can draw your food if you're interested in cookery. You can take any theme at all and develop it, and just make the ordinary extraordinary by trying to draw it. So these are a few closer to home ones. These are my neighbours. That's close to home. Again, another travel book. This is a lovely book. It's a hand-bound book that a friend gave me as a present. And it's nice to have any book that will lie flat. This was the diary of some travels I did recently from island to island, and more of that in another video. But it's nice to have this book that will just lie completely flat and be light enough to carry when you're hiking and walking around, and plenty of room on it to record each day being different. Lots of penguins. That's in the Falkland Islands. So I just tend to start somewhere, start anywhere, and then just fill up every gap on the page with words or fragments or impressions. And again, every page I look at takes me right back there. So that's travel ideas. What's that one? Oh, that's more doodling. I think we'll leave that. We've done doodling. Oh, and now we're on to my project books. This is what I need to do for my job as an illustrator, because everything starts here. For example, the theme of this illustration for Classic Boat magazine was musicians playing music in a boat's cabin. So I always start with a sketch, just working out where everything will go, and then I scan that and send it to the art editor, and if he's happy with it, I will then go and do a final version. So the final version looked like that. It's not quite the same as the sketch, but the basic layout was there, and it just gave me a chance to resolve all the problems in the rough sketch before I committed to a nice sheet of watercolour paper. It's always a mistake to go straight into your watercolour without any pre-planning. It's like trying to do long, complicated maths without working it out. I tend to work it out and then draw it on tracing paper and transfer it to the page. So a few other projects to look at. What else have I marked up in here? Oh yes, they don't always have to be detailed. There's hardly any lines on that one. It probably doesn't even show on the camera. A few scribbly swirls that turned into that. That's the next cartoon for Practical Boat Owner next month, and you haven't seen that yet, so I won't tell you what the caption is. But those sometimes just working out the initial shapes to establish what's going in there, how big it's going to be, where everything is in relation to itself. That's enough. And what else is in here? That's enough for that one. Here's another project book. I tend to fill up quite quickly. This is a different kind of thing. This was me playing around with some ideas for our local town. That's our town of Woodbridge, and I was putting a design onto a ceramic mug, so I needed to work out what to put on it and where it should all go. And eventually, after several redraws and tracing and redrawing and tracing again, it turned into a watercolour that I then printed onto a mug like that. So again, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with every design. They don't just all come out. Everything takes a lot of work, a lot of growing of seeds, watering, tending, nurturing, and then the exciting bit is the bit you see right at the end. What else is in here? Oh yes, this is just another rough. This one was for Classic Boat magazine. Again, that was the rough. And again I draw a line down the middle of the page to show where the centrefold is, to make sure I don't put anything important on there. I make notes if I need to, like the fact that I needed to reduce the sail size because it was a windy day. I've written there smaller jib, reefed staysail and double reefed main, so that when I came to do the final version I took my notes into account, and that's the final version that I was then able to scan and send into the magazine. So it's all the workings out that for me are the interesting bit. That's that. Finally, the biggest book of all. This is a nice big A3 book that I sometimes use. I just need a bit of extra space. What's in here? Yes, these are some of the ideas I've had. I wrote some true sea stories and was working on some illustrations. The book hasn't seen the light of day, but doesn't matter. Maybe it will one day. So yeah, sometimes you get some fragments and ideas and then you forget that you've had them and you put the book away. And I found this again recently, a little idea for a book of words and pictures. And if you've got some creative time but you're not feeling creative, it's a mistake to look at an empty page. There's no point, there's nothing there to feed you. You need to go back to your sketchbooks, thumb through them, and something that you've done might jump out and help you take the next step. But empty pages are shockingly inhibiting, as we all know. So that's it. That's all my different sketchbooks and different ways I use them. And I hope you find something in there that you can latch onto and try and do it in your own way and style. And let me know how you get on. Bye!